What's going on, guys? Magdallan here. It's been about 6 months since we've had any real balance changes in the game in the traditional sense. But now we have the 3.19 Manifesto available to us, and I have a long list of stuff to go over. I'm not going to touch on everything that's in there. Some of it is really outside of my knowledge, and some of the points just don't interest me or I feel like are pretty minor, and so I'll let you guys discover that stuff on your own. But there are quite a few changes that will affect the Righteous Fire setups that I've described in my previous guides, and even a couple changes that will affect the Tornado Shot build. So, if any of that interests you, hit that like and subscribe button and stick around. Alright, let's get into this here. I'm not going to read the thing word for word. Like I said, I'm just going to go through the stuff that I think is interesting or important, and we'll just go from there and see what happens as we get more information. So they've nerfed spell suppression. You get less on items, more on the tree. So you're going to be at about 74% with your gear, and then you're going to need to get the other 26% elsewhere. They increased the small nodes by 1 to 2% on the tree, and then the notables they mentioned go up by about 3 to 5. And so it should be fairly easy to cap out from the tree, but if you're not already over on that side, it's definitely going to be a bigger issue to get a cap. So I don't know how big of an effect that's going to have. We'll just have to kind of wait and see. They buffed Arctic Armor by 8% to both its Fizz reduction and fire reduction, so maybe that makes that viable. I don't know. They also buffed Flesh and Stone, so now you get 15% less damage taken from faraway enemies. I think it was 11 before, so a decent little buff there. They trashed out Defiance Banner, though. 50% nerf to the armor and evasion bonus and 33% nerf to the crit reduction. And then they also reduced the bonus you get from quality on the anomalous gem, so I assume that's going to make that way less used. They buffed Wind Dancer and Arrow Dancing, which I don't have a lot to say about that. They looked like fairly decent little buffs, but I assume that's not going to make anybody that wasn't already using it switch to it, so we'll just see what the effect of that is. They changed ward a little bit. They're reducing the cooldown on the instant restore from 5 seconds to 4, and then they're adding a bunch of faster restoration of ward mods to the ward bases. That's kind of cool. They're also buffing Faithguard a little bit. They did nerf the 100% global defenses mod down to 50%, so I don't know if that's the end of that or what. Very sad there. I thought that was kind of a cool thing that people were using. I had never used it, and so I guess I don't know what I'm missing, so you guys will have to tell me in the comments how bad this is. And then the first big nerf for the Righteous Fire build is the Life is Extra ES chest mod. This one sucks a lot. This is a mainstay of the build. It really helps us, on the quality of life curve. It gets us really going. It's a big break point. And so having that be replaced with a damage taken as Ellie type situation really sucks. And so maybe there'll be a new mod that we'll be searching for and some kind of other tech that we'll be going after. Or it may make it more useful to just use a different type of chest piece altogether for the build. I'm not sure. This is a big change, though, I think. We'll have to see how it shapes up. They buffed Mind Over Matter and Fortification. They did the Mind Over Matter stuff I don't really know a whole lot about. That seems kind of boring. But the Fortification thing, they doubled the amount that you get per hit, and even more, I guess, on rare and magic monsters. Then they increased the duration, and then they buffed on the tree the Steadfast cluster. So that might actually be a thing. I don't know. I would be really happy to see Fortification be more accessible. So if this goes along that route, then I think that's great. Another nerf to the Righteous Fire build is the Fire Trap nerf. They took that down by about 25% at the top end for the burning damage, which sucks a bunch. That's just a straight up quality of life decrease. It won't stop us from doing any content. It'll just make it take longer. They nerfed Explosive Arrow, so they reduced the explosive damage that you get per arrow in the target, but they increased the hit damage per arrow. So we'll see how that pans out. Cast on Death got nerfed. I'd never played that. I know people enjoy it, but it just was never a thing I was interested in. But I assume that's the end of that. Back to the Righteous Fire, they have made it so Divine Blessing can't be used with life taps, so that will lock us out of the Malevolence tech that I was doing at the beginning of the league to get the Explode going. So that's a bummer. And then we've got a nerf to Sniper's Mark. It no longer gives you flask charges, so that is also pretty shitty. That's going to affect the Tornado Shot build. Hydrosphere as well was nerfed, but mostly for minion builds. And by the way, I'm totally omitting anything they're saying about minions, basically, aside from this one thing, because it's Hydrosphere and I played a build that used it. I know almost nothing about minions, so I figured it was just best for me to leave that to other folks to discuss. But anyway, they're making it so only the entity that cast it can actually hit the Hydrosphere, so I think that means it should still work for Tornado Shot just fine, unless it makes it so that your totems can't hit it. I'm not sure. The next bit, they just list a bunch of gems that are underperforming and then buff them. So you got Energy Blade went up, Haste, Reeve, Scourge Arrow, Spell Slinger looks like it got a really good size buff, so I'm interested to see what happens with that. As well as Sunder looked like it got a pretty decent little buff, so those two are pretty interesting. And then the main one, though, that caught my eye is they buffed Scorching Ray. So it may be that we're actually running around doing the Shaper Beam with the Righteous Fire build again, as opposed to the Fire Traps, which, frankly, that would be a welcome change. And then we're on to the Ascendancies, which I think is the most disappointing part of this. They're alluding to a Trickster rework they don't tell us about. They're reworking Unbreakable on the Juggernaut, and they're adding, a little bit of damage to Chieftain on the node that makes it so you summon the little guys that also do the smash attacks. Super uninspired. And then Pathfinder, they're changing Master Alchemist to give you 20% flask effect, but then they nerfed Nature's Boon, so it no longer gives you LA damage, which... That's it. That's not even a very big change and doesn't really address identity or anything like that. And then a lot of the, no Necromancer work, nothing with Champion, nothing with Inquisitor. Just, I don't know. It seems like for 6 months, this section should have been a lot longer. That's really worrying for me. Almost no build that would have played a given Ascendancy is going to play a different one based on any of this, you know what I mean? Unless the Trickster rework is just crazy or breaks something, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Is there something that I listed here that I should be excited about that I'm not? I don't know. And then Omni is getting nerfed, which again people expected. The 1% to elemental resistances and the 1% Ellie Pen is now going to take 15 omniscience, per 1% as opposed to 10. So that's a nerf of about a third, so that sucks. And even worse, it's affecting existing items. So no Legacy Omni. That's it. I think that's a bummer. I just think that's a... I would have been fine with this if they weren't changing existing items, but it just makes it feel bad. So big bummer there. But we will have to just figure out either it's just not going to matter and you'll just gear slightly differently and it'll still just be good, or we'll just play something else. Yeah. And it looks like they also nerfed melding at the top end, which is, I'm going to gloss that because I've never used it. I don't know a whole lot about it and how hard it is to gear now, but it looks like it's going to be harder for sure. And then back to the Tornado Shot build, they did a nerf to Brittle. And so I was not actually using Brittle after I got to a certain point because I wanted more explosions and I was messing around with a bunch of different parts of the build. And so I don't need it, but for people who are using it to cap crit and all of that and the DPS chasers, this is a big nerf. And then probably the worst part of this, I guess, or the strangest part is that they removed this reservation mastery from the tree. So that's 15%. I think I've taken that on basically every build I've played. So I think we're definitely going to be looking at a league where defense stress is going to be way higher because it's going to be way harder to get the auras that you want. So instead of nerfing determination, they just made it so if you want to take it, it's just way more of a pain in the ass to get your damage stuff going or whatever. So this is not the way that I would have approached it, and I'm a little bit worried. And then a big one, and I think this is maybe the biggest nerf to the Righteous Fire build, is the flask charges gained when you get hit mod that you can get. We run that on every flask. Max roll if we can get it. 6 is acceptable. but now I think it tops out at 3. That's a significant problem. It's another thing that's going to make the build just feel worse. But one little thing that might make it feel better is the last little note. They've added Life Recoup to the Jewel mod pool. And that is a mechanic that I have enjoyed stacking as much as I could have the last couple leagues. And so I may lean into this pretty hard and see what happens if we stack a whole bunch of it. Alright guys, that's about all I've got for you on the Manifesto. It does seem like there's going to be some big problems with the Righteous Fire build in terms of the quality of life and the curve of just how it feels as you begin to gear at the beginning of the league. I don't think the build is dead or not viable. I think it'll still work. There's just going to be a lot more stress involved with getting it to where it's going to feel really smooth. And so this might be a league where I'm really looking into trying something new. Hopefully they're going to drop some new skills, something like that, as we get closer to the launch of the league. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. Did you guys like these changes? Are you excited? Was it boring? What do you guys think about the changes that they're making to the Ascendancies? I was really underwhelmed with that. I was hoping for some really big shakeups in that department, and they just kind of gave us a little meh. So yeah, let me know what you think about all that, and hit that like and subscribe button. I will see you in the next video.